Welcome everyone to today's IGAC ICAC ECR Seminar, where we have the pleasure of having five young professionals from WMO here to talk about science governance. They're going to tell us about what they do within WMO, and I'm going to leave it to Julie to do the presentations of all the speakers. So, Julie, please.
Thank you, Simone. Hi, everyone, and very glad to see you all present today for this seminar, this IGAC seminar. So we're a few of us from WMO, a few of WMO's junior professionals to share our experiences with you. And on the subject of science governance, I hope all of you can see the slides. So for us, we think it's particularly important to exchange on this subject with you all. Especially knowing the current context we're living in, where climate change skepticism and fake news spread faster than accurate data, or where AI takes the lead on informing citizens. So we're all in a constant fight for scientific accuracy in the media, notably. So it's a collective work to ensure this accuracy. And so we see more and more that media can become a type of also even lobbying, which directly impacts decision making. So here in this introduction, I will also quote David Attenborough, who recently created an Instagram account, actually, because as he said, saving our planet is now a communications challenge. So now we see that it's not anymore about proving A or B with scientific research, but it's rather about ensuring that this evidence is entering the right rooms and constantly fueling, the right discussions. Because it is true, what's the point of advancing science if it stays in a bubble, if discoveries are cut from the rest of society? And how to ensure citizens actually benefit from such discoveries and data. So here is where science communications come into play, and how, for example, how to communicate data to a non-scientific audience. So we also see that our generation is facing kind of a considerable challenge, let's say, about breaking the silos between sectors to ensure that effective dissemination of science is done, because without this, inaccurate information, can take the lead, and that hampers climate action. So in this realm, scientists are a crucial link in this information chain. So back to us at WMO, we are coordinating at WMO scientific research and bridging the gap between scientists or researchers and policy decision makers in the fields of meteorology, climate, hydrology, and environmental sciences. So here I will quote our Secretary General, Professor Celeste Saulo, because as she said, the WMO mandate is to ensure that Earth information is not only collected, but also understood, accessible, and actionable for all. And WMO's global coordination position facilitates bringing together a wide range of relevant stakeholders in this mission. So it's what science governance is about. And all of us here present today are working within the Science and Innovation Department of WMO, either within scientific programs or via Horizon Europe projects, which are focused on climate resilience and adaptation. So these two hats, let's say, both the scientific programs and the Horizon Europe projects enables WMO to take part in building innovative products and policies to tackle today's climate issues that the world is facing. So now we'll do a short round of presentations of all of us. To facilitate it, we have this slide so that you can also later on for your questions have it easier, knowing who is who and in which field all of us are specialized, let's say. So go ahead, everyone, to present yourselves one by one, maybe Leilani, Isha, Mega, then Jarin, and myself.
Thanks, Julie. So my name is Leilani. My background is in atmospheric and oceanic sciences, and I'm also currently completing my master's degree in environmental science at the University of Geneva. I'm working in the team of atmospheric composition and environmental services for the GRAW program on a number of different projects and also supporting the activities related to stratospheric ozone and UV. Thanks.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi everyone, and thanks Julie for the introduction. I'm Isha. I work with the World Weather Research Program. My background is in sustainable and environmental policy and finance. But at the WWRP, I work as an associate scientific officer, focusing more on the social science centric components of the program. So, kind of the second half of what Julie mentioned, how to ensure the information is usable and actionable. That's what my projects usually focus on. And yeah, I've been in WMO for about 3 years now, mostly working with projects and coordination, but also communications in some parts. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Julie, for the nice introduction. I'm Megha. I've been in WMO for about 2.5 years now. I work in the Science and Innovation Department, specifically on Horizon Europe projects on climate resilience. My core work is in science communication and outreach in relation to the Horizon Europe projects.
Hi everyone, and thanks Julie for the introduction. My name is Jarin Tasnim Oishi, and I have been working in WMO since summer 2024. And I also work in the Global Atmosphere Watch program. And my background is in environmental engineering. I did my bachelor's in this, and then afterwards I did a master's in urban climate and sustainability. I'm from Bangladesh, and I've been working with the government for quite some time. And currently also I mostly work in the science policy interface, and I coordinate the Integrated Global Greenhouse Gas Information System, or IGAS, where we try to get closer to our stakeholders and help them implementing different policies or innovative projects related to greenhouse gas emissions monitoring. I'm glad to be here and excited for the talk. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I'm Julie Bourdeux, and I'm also in the Global Atmosphere Watch program, same as Leilani and Jarin. And I come from, so it's been 2 years now, a bit more than 2 years that I'm working here. And I come from a background of international relations and international law. And also I did my master's in environmental law. So, and here within Go, I also work on EU projects, partially, not 100%, but, and the rest is helping coordinate science, within Go for the Global Atmosphere Watch program. So let me just gather up the thoughts for the introduction before the panel discussion. So as you've seen, our work evolves around coordination and also communication tasks, but not only. But also, what does that mean? It means we're not advancing research nor measurements per se, but rather facilitating them and translating them into terms that make data more accessible to key actors who can use this data to take action, which is the actionable word I mentioned in my slide before. So also we organize trainings, and this can also be taken into account when talking about dissemination, for example. And today we want to show you in more detail the other side of the medal, because on one side you have the science that you are doing, and on the other side you have how it's implemented into services to the population, how the rest of the world gets access to it, and how it serves society. So let me now start the panel discussion with all of us. And so we were thinking of doing a 30 minutes panel discussion. and followed by a 30 minutes Q&A. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to write them down in the chats or keep them for later, and we'll open the floor for questions after the panel discussion. Okay, so let's start. So with the first question, WMO plays an important role in global governance related to climate, weather, and water. So to all of you, how does your work at WMO shape the way scientific priorities are set, coordinated, and translated into guidance or action?
Should I go first?
Yeah, go ahead, Jaren.
Oh, could you please share the slide, Julie?
Yeah. I was on the other. Yes, all good now.
So I am starting from a bit back, like why it started. So WMO was established in 1950. Before that, it was called International Meteorological Organization, IMO, which was established in 1873. But it was a non-governmental organization, so it was facing some challenges to coordinate with all the countries in the world. So then it got recognized as an UN body, and then it started like more integrated coordination globally. And currently, WMO has 193 members. So how it started actually. So initially, after WMO was formed, it had two different programs for atmospheric compositions. One was Global Ozone Observing System, which was established in 1957. And then there was another one called Background Air Pollution Monitoring Network, which was formed in 1967. So both of them merged into Global Atmosphere Watch, or GAW program, in 1989. So since then, GAW has been coordinating all the atmospheric compositions related activities in WMO. Next slide, please. So I just gave the background to show how GAW was formed, and now I'm going a bit deeper into what I do. So I'm mostly involved in activities related to greenhouse gases. So here I tried to show a timeline on how it evolved, and after that I will explain more about my particular activities. So WMO organized the first greenhouse gas and related tracer measurement techniques, GGMT, meeting in 1975. So it was first of the kind that actually brought all the scientists and experts from all around the world and initiated discussions around greenhouse gases, which ultimately continued like every 2 years. So the last meeting was held in 2024. And the next one is this year, and it's going to be in South Africa. So this 1975 meeting actually started discussions around greenhouse gases, and eventually it influenced the formation of the International Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, and it was established by both WMO and UNEP. Then in 1989, as I already mentioned, that GAW program started greenhouse gas observations and research, and from that, this sector was getting highlighted more. Our researchers from GAW program actually supported IPCC reports for quite some time, and it helped during the formation of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. And then realizing the importance of greenhouse gases, WMO started to think more about something more concrete to express the scientific information about greenhouse gases to the general audience. And from that perspective, WMO published the first greenhouse gas bulletin in 2004, and this document is a key element to provide information to the SAPSTA meeting of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And after that, people started to recognize that, okay, we have the information about greenhouse gases, but still there is a gap in the monitoring of the greenhouse gases. And there was no established method. There were guidelines from IPCC, but all the countries were measuring it differently. Not all countries had enough research or their specific emission factors, or there were many uncertainties going on. So then scientists actually started discussing to create an integrated system that everybody can use, and the data and information collected through the system is transferable and comparable. From that idea, WMO established the Integrated Global Greenhouse Gas Information System, or IGAS, as a Science for Services initiative under the GO program in 2015. So after that, IGAS started to proceed gradually. So then in 2018, we had our IGAS implementation plan. And then after 2023, we started to work more on developing guidelines, focusing on different levels of greenhouse gas monitoring, from national, urban, sectoral, or even facility scale. So this was one of the activities that started since 2023. And also WMO initiated Global Greenhouse Gas Watch, which is about monitoring greenhouse gases at global scale. So next slide, please. So here I'm giving a very brief overview about IGAS, what we do. So IGAS mainly is trying to support to create a common framework for systematic services to the user community. So the users can be the national governments, the city authorities, different sectoral users like agricultural sector, waste sector, wastewater management, or people dealing with methane emissions or other greenhouse gas emissions. So this integrated system is scalable. It's applicable to different gases. It's transparent and based on most recent science. So it helps to get the most advanced atmospheric data. And as it is science-based and observation-based, it's very accurate and timely. So when people are submitting their greenhouse gas inventories to the UNFCCC, this scientific method is very helpful to check the accuracy and quality of the data, and also verifying whether they're doing their inventory in the correct way, or are there any ways to improve it. And also the timeliness and availability of the information helps to support the different sources and identify emitters, or even help to develop better policies and regulations. So, so now what we are trying to do to promote this idea to our stakeholders and help them to improve their greenhouse gas monitoring and verification. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of what IGAS has done over the past 10 years. So it was a great achievement for IGAS that the IPCC 2019 refinement for national greenhouse gas inventories actually recognized IGAS as a very reliable method for quality assurance and quality control and verification of greenhouse gases, emissions and removals. So this is well recognized, and they suggest that if countries have enough technical and financial capacity, they should move to these methodologies along with their traditional inventories. And as we got some very positive feedback from the community, and there was a strong need of better guidance, because there were many methodologies moving around, but people didn't know how to proceed. So IGAS started to develop guidelines on specific scales. So the first one was on urban scale greenhouse gas emission observation and monitoring. And then last year, we developed another guideline on national scale greenhouse gas emissions using atmospheric observations. And we plan to develop two more. One is for LULUCF sector, and then another for facility scale methane. And we are all also trying to organize stakeholder consultations and connect with stakeholders to help them implement this methodology into their countries or their activities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Darren. Is there anybody else in the panel who wants to continue answering the question?
Yeah, maybe I can also take the question. So maybe before I respond, I want to introduce the World Weather Research Program where I am based in the WMO Secretariat. So at the World Weather Research Program, we try to bring together international expertise, build a community to address challenges that focus on weather. So the topics we cover range from tropical cyclones, monsoons, high impact weather, early warning systems. In this case, we are focusing a lot on people-centered early warning systems. So basically challenges around very short time scales. Regarding the governance part, how we do this is we do have the convening ability to build a community of experts from various regions across the world to form expertise on a specific topic. The advantage of this is that we ensure that the research is not biased to a region, and also at the same time, there are experts from around the world who can bring different perspectives to the same scientific topic, be it monsoons or be it high impact weather. So one of the ways we kind of implement the guidance we develop is largely by forming expert teams and working groups or research groups, as we refer to them, and projects. So all the work that we do, our strategic objectives align with those of WMO, which is directly formed by the feedback countries have given to WMO. So for instance, the Executive Council is a governing body which has representatives of countries that come and put forth their needs that they would like WMO to address and work on. So a good example of how this whole cycle of governance works is after members represent their needs at the Executive Council, they can assign a specific body within WMO to address those needs. So in 2025, members told WMO that they would like to have guidance on weather modification activities. So this was assigned to the World Weather Research Program because of our expertise on this. We already have research groups on this. And by end of 2025, we developed guidance on this. It was approved by member countries, and now it is an official document that exists. So it touches on what Jareen has said already. So these guidelines are used by national meteorological and hydrometeorological services or other actors in the field as kind of the standard. And at the same time, they've requested WWRP to keep updating these guidelines. Obviously, weather modification is of very high scientific and policy relevance now, more so of how often it's being used to address various challenges. So that's kind of the way the governance cycle works on a more strategic and higher level. What the Secretariat does, or what I do, is to kind of translate what members want into a tangible output. So we sit at the center of all of this. So once I have this guidance that members would want, say, a statement on weather modification, we work with expert teams. We ensure that we are able to work with countries to have the right expertise in a particular group, and they are able to work and develop guidance. And we facilitate this whole process, be it through meetings, through coordination, through giving feedback to that document, through assessing if we have the right expertise, if it is expressive of all the regions that we cover. So that's one thing. The other very important thing is that we have a lot of oversight. So it's not just that a statement is developed and it's approved and it's published. There's a level of robustness scientifically that comes on, and that's where we have a scientific steering committee. They basically act as a quality assurance mechanism. So anything we do is kind of verified by them before it's implemented. So that kind of adds two levels. The first is where, as a secretariat, we work between this governance to output channel. And the second is ensuring that we are constantly working with scientists who have the highest expertise on the matter to not only look at it once, but to verify it on another stage. So anything that comes out is very scientifically robust and credible, which is kind of where WMO really comes in. So this is kind of where we ensure that our actions at the Secretariat and our support and the facilitation we provide influences the setting of scientific priorities, which can then become guidelines, as Darren has spoken about, a statement on a critical topic like weather modification, or eventually inform policy and decision makers. So we deal with a range of stakeholders on the other end of the spectrum, but I think our job is to really ensure that this governance works efficiently and is scientifically credible and verified. So anything that comes out is really becomes the golden standard for these type of activities.
Okay, thank you so much. And you were talking about robust and reliable data, but so for decision makers to make decisions based on robust and reliable data, we obviously the science needs to be clearly communicated to them. It's not just about coordinating. So we see that science communication plays a crucial role here. So how does your work support the communication and dissemination of scientific information?
So I think I can answer this question first. Yeah. So in my role, I think I can think of two ways in which we support the dissemination and communication of scientific information. First, through as Isha said, through this governance aspect, we build a profile of credibility and reliability internationally. And this helps when communicating on specific topics. So in terms of the activities linked to stratospheric ozone and UV, which I will give this example because this is what I have experience in. We also have a scientific advisory group, which is composed of experts on ozone and UV from around the world, working either in operational centers or on data management. Also, we have UV health related experts, all kinds of things. And these experts work together to coordinate the network and the governance of stratospheric ozone and UV measurements worldwide. And one of the activities that we do with this group is to put together a yearly bulletin where we put everything that the world needs to know about what happened in that given year in the ozone and UV research community. So there's always a piece about the state of the ozone layer for that year, and the state of the Antarctic ozone layer for that year. We have pieces on UV and health research, or also on the governance, like linked to the Vienna Convention and the Montreal Protocol. So we're really linking from the observations to the policymakers and communicating this to the world. And these bulletins, or the information that is published in them, is picked up by journalists and media all over the world who are happy to share these messages because they know that they come from a credible source. And within the Global Atmosphere Watch program, there are also other bulletins on atmospheric composition topics. There's one on airborne dust, on greenhouse gases, and air quality and climate, and they're all published every year. So that's one example. The other is through work that I'm doing in one of the European Horizon Europe projects, which is focused on non-CO2 forces and their climate, weather, and air quality impacts. And WMO is leading the communication and dissemination for that project. And one of the tasks that we have is to translate the very technical information and research that or outputs from this project into more digestible scientific science and policy briefs. And this can be a really interesting but also very challenging process. We ask them to kind of contextualize their work to give some background so that someone who has no background in this field can understand better why this research is being done. And then also what are the potential impacts that this work could have for other scientific areas or for policy. And through, a process of iteration with the researchers and trying to understand from our side, I have a somewhat technical background, but not maybe as technical as some of the experts in the project, and having to understand what they're working on and also having them explain it to us is not always easy. So these are the two things I can think of in my related work. Thanks.
Thank you, Leylan. Anybody else wants to add anything on this?
Yes, maybe I can jump in a bit about this. So I work on Horizon Europe projects, just like what a part of what Leilani does. The two projects that I work on are on building climate resilience, one across different sectors, and one is across European metropolitan regions. So in that sphere, WMO is one of the many partner organizations in each of the projects. So we share the space with universities, private sector, other research institutions, national meteorological and hydrological services. So we are one among the many players in each of these projects. So where does our role come in here? Our role is basically to connect different partners with people who are outside of the project consortium. We call it a consortium for each project. And why we are in that position to do so is because WMO is an international organization under the UN umbrella, and we command a certain gravitas and a certain pull to be able to put all of these different players connecting with each other. And in these projects, our role is to form these connections and make these linkages so that the impact and the output of these projects get maximized to a greater extent. And in that sense, WMO also has a role to play in feeding into the products that come out of these projects. So on one side of the projects, they are building a digital twin, or they're building a tool to improve climate resilience. But on the other side, these projects and these tools need to be useful to the general public and to the population. And there, WMO feeds into creating a policy framework, because we have experts who come with many years of experience in this sphere. So we feed into that making of the policy framework, writing down policy briefs that can be fairly understood by a non-technical person, which usually is the ministers and the politicians and the decision makers in each of these countries, towns, and cities. And WMO also brings in its expertise in upscaling some of the solutions that come out of these projects as the outcomes. And WMO, because we are in this unique position in between these many things, my work and our work kind of plays into facilitating these connections, helping them translate it into better terms and upscaling things so that we see the bigger picture and we know okay, Europe is developing this, there is a need somewhere in India or somewhere in Sri Lanka or, in Fiji. We are aware of those needs, so it's easier for us to kind of make those connections across continents. And that's where our work plays in this entire equation.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to add anything to this question, to answer this question? If not, then we'll go to the third one. So, as mentioned in the introduction, we're going through a difficult era because from growing mistrust on climate science and evidence to the emergence of newer technologies like AI, communicating the right way about all of this becomes more crucial. So from your experience, what has the learning process been like in verifying and communicating scientific information? And how has the rise of misinformation and AI changed your approach?
Okay, I'll go first in this one. My background is journalism and development studies, and I worked as a journalist in India for about 3 years before I moved to Geneva. And yes, when we say communicating science to people, a wide range of people, from WMO perspective, we have different communication products. We have things that are tailored to specific audience who are informed, who are technical audience, who have that academic depth to understand science language. And then we have certain channels that cater to a more public and broader audience, which have a range of understanding abilities of what we are trying to say. And so, from my experience, one of the major learnings have been how organizations like WMO is not the only organization that has the credibility. There are a lot of organizations that have credibility and that build the science and then that base their communications on this strong foundation of scientific evidence. So credibility is extremely important when you're communicating science. And the other learning that that I've furthered after I came here is how it's a fine line between fear mongering and drawing attention to the urgency required for climate action. It's a very thin line, right? Because it can easily cross over and say that, oh my God, world is going to end. But no, that is not the tone. We need to say that it is important, it is urgent, it is happening as we speak, it is real, but there is time, there is a way to solve this. We still have time to act on it. And that thin line is extremely hard to navigate. And here, once you understand science better, you get equipped with more tools to communicate that properly. And the third thing is also how we can use real life examples to communicate the science that WMO facilitates to build. For example, we can speak for hours about how the heat stress is linked to climate and how it's important and all the technical aspects of it. But for a common person, it doesn't matter to them what heat stress is and everything, but then you have to communicate in a language that they feel is relatable. So when you say, I come from India, so when you say that, it's summer and it's heat wave and, please stay indoors between so and so time, consume water, electrolytes, blah, 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 then people are able to understand that, okay, these things affect my daily life, these things affect my livelihood, and then that prompts them to act more when compared with trying to tell them the same story in scientific language. all this said and done, we also live in an era of AI, and there is a lot of fake news going on. There is a lot of intentional and accidental disinformation and misinformation. And our only antidote, the working antidote to these things so far, has been to share only the information that you have verified. Do not forward random things. Do not forward things just because you receive and it looks real. And always, always go back to the credibility of the source of this information. If you find something that is extremely, catchy, but then you don't know what the source is, go to the organization's websites, look for informed documentation of these things, and then decide if you want to share or not. Being trigger happy is not going to work, and it's not for any of our benefit, right? And it's only going to get worse. The integration of AI is only going to make these things worse. So in such situations, it's important to remember, always look for credibility. Where is this information coming from? That is more important than what the information is. Always, always look for credibility. And coming from the subcontinent, I think it's very, very important to educate our peers, but more than that, our elders, because they're all, very involved with their mobile phones and internet, and they forward as received and all of that. So I think there it's very important for us youngsters to educate them and also ask critical questions where it's important.
Thank you so much, Megha. Highly agreed. Anybody wants to add anything?
Yeah, maybe I think I can add something. I think one of the important things that Megha touched on already is the ability to review material, because what we've seen in our work is also people don't want to know so much as what we know, but how do we know it? So in WWRP, our biggest strength, I would say, is our convening ability and access to experts on specific topics and subject matter experts in general. And any communication materials that we draft are not only verified by the communication team within WMO, but also by scientific experts who are external to us, so they have no reason to be biased to us. And they help us verify and we ensure that we only kind of communicate things where we have evidence from our projects, from our research groups, from our experts, and that's the information that goes out. The one challenge that I see there is speed versus quality. It takes time to coordinate, to review, to verify, and then release things. And obviously, as Megha implied, like in the event of rising disinformation and misinformation, it's very hard to have the same speed with which we release verified information as opposed to just disinformation in general, because you can't kind of generate this at the click of a button. It takes time to formulate it, to verify it, especially if it has data, and then to release it and ensure you have the evidence and source to back it up. So I think this is one thing that it's kind of been a learning curve. I think I'm still learning in my work how to deal with the speed versus quality challenge. And I think the second thing that we've seen a lot is algorithmic transparency and bias when AI generates something. Almost always AI generated content about climate or weather or extreme events has some sort of biases. These could be regional biases, context-based biases, and other biases that just it's in the model, and that's the way the information is going to come out. And one of the things that's really helped us is to ensure we have global representation. So we have experts from all over the world, from all regions in Asia, in Africa, in South America, the US, and Europe, to ensure that we actually are able to check if there is a bias. We all have subconscious biases as well. So it's not always possible for us to catch it when the information is there. But when we've circulated it with our experts to verify this material, we've not only seen scientific verification, we've also seen them checking that there is bias in this, even the way it's written. If it's written by a human being, by a person, there is still bias in a report or something like that, which tends to misrepresent or underrepresent a certain problem in a specific region. So I think the other thing that we've really learned is to keep this community as global and international as possible, so we can have these internal checks scientifically and just in terms of social bias, and to ensure the material we put out is scientifically robust, but also socially very relevant. It doesn't kind of, I mean, maybe we are all reading such polarized information, so it's hard to kind of identify subtle biases or even know they are there. But as you read the material often and you speak to people who've worked in a specific regions for years of their life, they can really see it and call it out, and it really helps. And the third thing would probably be to have more of a conversation about this. It's an evolving topic. It's developing very, very fast. And what we've tried to do is have open discussions. You don't have to be a member. You don't need to represent a country. You don't even need to be an expert. You can also be a consumer of this information. And to have an open conversation with WWR in World Weather Research Program events, meetings, to actually talk about this issue a little bit and better understand perspectives and how different people are dealing with the governance of AI in communications, in risk information, information that goes to decision makers, and all of this stuff. And all that to say, we actually have an event coming soon, which I will put the link of in the chat, which does talk about the role of AI not only in scientific communication, but also in the way user responses are assessed using AI models. How do you maintain algorithmic transparency? How do you ensure accountability when you are using AI? These types of concepts. I'll put the link in the chat, but I think it really helps to have an open conversation about this as well.
Thank you very much. Jaren, I see you unmuted. Do you want to
Yeah.
add anything?
I wanted to add something. From my experience in IGAS, we have seen that obviously AI is emerging at this point, but we also need accurate information from the ground to serve the AI, right? So that's why we are trying to fill the gaps in terms of greenhouse gas emissions monitoring, because still now many of the countries around the world don't have reliable monitoring systems for greenhouse gas emissions and removals. So in our consultations, where we have heard from many countries that they don't have enough technical capacity or financial capacity to establish such advanced monitoring systems. And even their inventories are not so accurate because they often have to hire consultants, external consultants. So within the ministries or within the governmental bodies, they don't have any specific dedicated office who is continuously monitoring the emissions and removals. So they actually don't know whether their activities for mitigation, whichever new initiatives they are doing in their countries, are actually working, or they are reducing the emissions as they expect. So this is a challenge that people face. And also in terms of reporting, it's an issue, like when countries have to report their NDCs, nationally determined contributions, to the UNFCCC. The countries, in many cases, they don't have accurate information for sectors like agriculture or land use changes or waste sectors, because it's very difficult to get accurate measurements from the inventories. Mostly they try to submit information about the energy industry or transportation sectors. So we are trying to help countries to fill out these gaps and lower the uncertainties. And in this case, we have got these recommendations that involving the youth can be a very good practice. And already many of the developed countries are doing this, like universities, master's and PhD students work closely with the government organizations, mostly the environmental or meteorological organizations, to help them collect data or do new or advanced research on greenhouse gas emissions monitoring. And so both the parties are getting impacted in this. And we are hearing this from other countries as well, who currently don't have any infrastructure or technical capacities. They think that training or educating the young generation can be more beneficial because it's a new topic in many countries. They don't have any experiences. So if it's integrated in the curriculum from early stages, people might get more capable and also interested to pursue their careers in this field. And this might help the governments to carry out innovative and ambitious projects in the future to improve their reporting to the UNFCCC, and also identifying the gaps in in their respective countries, or identifying sources which are emitting more, or which sources are working better after introducing different mitigation solutions. So I think communication is very important, but also we need to focus on the sustainability of it. And in this case, engaging a young generation in science communication can be a very effective method. Thank you.
Very good point. Thank you, Jaren. Okay, so that was the last question. I'm now opening the floor for the Q&A for more questions from all of you. I see there were some questions in the chat that we can go through. Maybe first we go through those before anybody takes the floor. I see there's one on greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gas emissions are increasing globally. How does the general guidance and reporting would help in controlling these emissions? It provides information regarding only the emission inventories, or it suggests any remedies that can be taken to control the release of these gases in the atmosphere.
Okay, I can answer that. So IGAC is not actually giving any information about the inventories. So what it's doing, it's trying to observe the total atmospheric concentrations, like the sum of the emissions. Is it increasing or decreasing? So it's kind of a continuous process, and you can see whether your emissions are going up or down. And how it helps, so when you have your inventories, because inventories take time to generate, it's not a very easy process. So countries take like 1 to 2 years to develop their inventories. So when your inventory is done, you can actually check with your atmospheric observations whether the total results from the inventories and the atmospheric observations match. If not, it can be excess or it can be less. So depending on your outcomes, you can actually identify whether your mitigation actions are working or not. If it's more than your inventories, then obviously your inventory didn't consider some of the sources which are currently emitting. So you can trace back to those sources and identify what was the reason or why this source was not included in the inventory. So it can help you to improve your inventory, right? And sometimes the atmospheric observation is less than your inventory. So then there might be some overestimation. So you calculated some sources which were not actually emitters, but they might be absorbing the emissions, right? Like they're removing the greenhouse gases. So this can also help you to verify whether your inventory method is correct or not, because otherwise there's no way that an inventory can be verified. Even when you submit it to the UNFCCC, there is no practical method to understand whether the country submitted accurate information. That's why we are trying to have a standardized method so that all the countries can use similar approaches or similar ways to report their emissions and removals, so that it's easily verifiable and traceable. I hope it answered your question.
So I see also that there's a follow-up, there are follow-up answers in the chat or discussions. That's great. We love it, discussions between people in the chat. So yeah, I guess it was also asking mainly if any of those suggestions for remedies are taken into account in the guidelines?
Yeah, countries actually do. Like we have, so that those are included in the guidelines. So guidelines include good practices like UK, Switzerland, Canada, New Zealand. There are many other countries, Germany, Korea. So they have included in this IGAS methodologies into their inventory reporting. And there are many examples. I can share the links of the reports. People can go through it. Those are very interesting, like how they identified different sources, and then it helped them to improve their inventories, and also like tracing the sources and identifying the reasons, and then they could introduce better mitigation actions for them.
Thank you, Jaren. Then I see in the chat again a question from Max. Does WMO from its respected global position step in to support agencies, key agencies like NOAA or NCAR, when they're threatened by political tendencies? And more generally, oh, okay, there's more. And more generally, how does WMO ensures capability and resources are distributed globally to ensure, I guess, political turmoil. Sorry. This is quite a quite a question, let's say it that way. Anyone wants to have a go at it? We can all add.
Maybe I can try. From my understanding, I would say that one WMO, it's not WMO's mandate to do so. And WMO as a technical agency is required to stick to its mandate by its member states that work in governing the affairs, not affairs, governing the governing the strategic goal of the organization, right? So when you go with that, then it's not WMO's mandate to support agencies in this particular situation that you asked, in when they're politically threatened or when there is political turmoil, not in that way. But what WMO does do is to keep advocating for the value that these agencies add in fulfilling the mandate, and also in global cooperation, multilateral cooperation. That is something WMO can do and is doing as we speak. And in terms of the second part of your question, WMO ensures distribution of resources where there is a need, regardless of whether the need is political or, because of conflicts, because of low capacity, any of this, where there is a need, WMO tries to take capacity and resources there via participating in bigger projects by bigger funds. Like we have some projects that are funded by Adaptation Fund, we have projects that are funded by GCF, and they all tie up with WMO because they trust in WMO's ability to implement these things in areas where the capacity is currently low. And WMO there acts as this trusted, honest broker, and which attracts a GCF or an adaptation fund to pour in a lot of money, which the countries by themselves don't have the capacity to raise. So it's more like I'm remembering a proverb that I heard in Africa when I'm saying this. Together we go farther, right? If you want to go far, you go together. If you want to go fast, you go alone. And what WMO is doing is we want to go farther. We want to create that sustained capacity building. And so we partner with people and organizations that have money. And this is how we are trying to do that.
Leilani, go ahead. You had the hand first.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Julie. I wanted to just add on to Mega's answer, which was pretty complete. But and just maybe more from an individual perspective, like I guess in this going farther together mindset, we through the groups that we coordinate, we have, of course, experts from NOAA or from, who any agency that may be experiencing trouble, and where WMO can support is to um, ensure that they can remain involved in the activities that we are coordinating and support them to attend the meetings as needed, and keeping them in the loop. Most people that are working in like government agencies are also affiliated with academic institutions, so we continue to have a valuable role in the work that we do. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Thank you, Leilani. Isha?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to respond to the second half of that question, which is more to see how resources are distributed. And I think generally there has been a practice, and I'm not sure if I speak for all of WMO, but definitely WWRP, is that we do channel resources to support early career researchers and members from developing countries when they express they need support. This could be to attend conferences, to attend a meeting. So in that vein, as Leilani said, to ensure that they are in a position to be able to contribute to meetings. I'm not sure, but I think IGAS meetings have the same component, Jain. I assume, I think I've heard this, but yeah, so in that sense, we try to ensure that we create a level playing field where people have the opportunity to attend important meetings, conferences, or publish based on whether they were early career researchers, whether they're from a developing country, and so on.
Thank you. And I see that, Jaren, you added a lot of information in the chat. I will go through other questions because there are quite some. What changes in your information dissemination approach when countries are willing but lack resources versus those that are less willing to act, considering the goal of eventually bringing all countries to a similar level of capacity? Are there partner organizations or other government agencies that support this process?
I can answer this because we are currently doing it. So what we are trying to do in WMO is actually partner with different organizations, international bodies. So we have a quite good communication across this international organizations chains. So we try to help each other. I can give what IGAS is trying to do currently. So as I mentioned already, that we are now trying to implement IGAS in different countries, but we faced that they don't have the technical capacity or the financial capacity to implement IGAS in their countries. So then we collaborated with NDC Partnership and Climate and Clean Air Coalition, CCSC. So they helped us to connect with countries because these organizations have a bigger network and they have a list of countries who express their support needs to them. So we identified specific countries who expressed interest in terms of improving greenhouse gas monitoring. So they connected us with those countries, we communicated with them, and then we are bringing them to our stakeholder consultations, which I shared here, which is in April. So in that event, we are also inviting people who have already developed proposals and got fund, or different donor organizations or UN organizations who are experienced in this, or also people from NDC Partnership are coming. So it's quite a broad group of people who can actually exchange their experiences and understand what are the good practices, what works, what doesn't work, what are the gaps, etc. And on top of that, based on the requests that we received from the participants, we are arranging one proposal development session. So the idea is mostly to help these countries who are interested to implement IGACs in their different activities, to help them to develop proposals for climate funds, especially how to integrate this monitoring component into mitigation or cross-cutting projects. So they can actually get this technical support from the experts of WMO and our collaborators, and their proposals are more scientifically accurate and comply with the guidance provided by those specific funding agencies, because these funds are very difficult to get, and a lot of technical details are needed to complete the proposals. So that's why we are trying to help the countries and increase the communication between the stakeholders and the partners, so that there's a better outcome after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaren. I'll continue going through the questions. I'll just put up this slide again. If you have more specific questions to a program, or you want to ask to a specific person, not just to see our faces, to know what are our specificities or specialties. Then we have a question about communication. Are there specific tools implemented by WMO targeting different age groups, taking into account that the official bulletins are not easily understandable by the younger generation or elderly?
I can say something.
Yeah, thanks.
I think that it's evolving now that WMO historically has been very much report-based, and even the bulletins are like shorter forms of these very long reports that WMO publishes. And I know that many of us here have worked on trying to find different ways of communicating with different audiences. One of these is that we started a WMO youth-led podcast, and that's available on Spotify, where someone from Secretariat will interview people from outside experts, either working as early career researchers or already established in the community on a specific topic. That's one. And another one I would say is webinars like this, where we can interact with also a different kind of a different part of the community that we don't see on a daily basis. And this enables us to speak about some specific topic and be maybe more general and engaging to a wider audience.
Thank you, Leilani. I just added the link to it's a Spotify podcast. I just put the link in the chat. And also on just a note on the bulletins, they're in all the UN languages, official languages, and there are maximum more or less around 7 pages to make them really readable, easily readable, such as, for example, policy briefs, really for people to integrate easily the matter, let's say. Not like long reports. We also have those, but yeah. Mega?
Yes, I just wanted to add that when it comes to communicating to different types of, say, age groups or other differentiation, WMO also depends a lot on the ripple effect of communication. So when we are putting out an information, we sincerely hope that country level people amplify it in the local language, because Like Julie mentioned, UN has only 6 official languages, but then, um, the world has people communicating in thousands of languages. And it's important that these messages reach communities as well. And that's where intermediaries come into play. So it's a teamwork, and it's not just a top-down thing in that strictest sense, because we give in major languages and then we hope and pray that it is amplified by communities and people in those communities and local authorities, all the relevant modes of dissemination, to take it up and translate it wherever possible, adapt it to their specific context and all of that, and further that dissemination activity so that the information reaches the last mile of last mile extent of it.
Yeah, thank you, Mega. And if I may add also, that's also why we wanted to talk about communication under science governance, because it's a long-standing trait, let's say, of having difficulties for an organization such as WMO, for example, to communicate the science and not just to focus on the science, but also spread it and spread it in a way that is understandable and actionable, like we said. So there are still developments being underway, and for example, having more presence, WMO presence on TikTok or other ways of sharing the knowledge, the science, and how to take action on it to younger people. That's underway, let's say. It's still under development. Another question, scientists are often not trained in how to communicate their science to non-scientists. Do you have any tricks/things to consider when writing for non-scientists or planning presentations, besides to consider your audience?
I can take a first shot at trying to answer it. I would say I'm not from a scientific background. I'm more of a social science journalist background. So I would say that one of the things that I've seen a lot of atmospheric scientists and climate scientists be good at is coding or data visualization. And I think that is a good tool to try and communicate what your research is about, because picture speaks louder than words sometimes. And I think it's a great tool for you to do like a bit of an animation or data visualization, or even a simple graphic could go that extra mile in communicating your research in clear terms. Think of it as a poster design, but not that wordy, like decrease the number of elements in that poster and use a lot more colors. You can be a bit more informal in designing those products. That's one thing. Second thing that I can think of is, I mean, this might be a bit controversial, but then try not to be shy in showing your face and talking about your research, because we live in an era, fortunately or unfortunately, where reading is becoming less when compared with consuming multimedia content. And in those situations, in such scenarios, you trying to communicate research in a simple language, like how you are talking to your parents or your sister or your brother who is not in this realm, how would you explain it to them? Just break it down into multiple videos. It need not be like a whole lecture for 60 minutes. No, just try to see if you can condense it in 1 minute or 1.5 minutes. Take a video of it and post it somewhere or share it within your friends. And like many things in life, communication is an art. Communicating science is an art. And you get better the more you practice it, like any other forms of art. But you need to start somewhere. And that is where these kind of, sharing small videos or that can be a commentary as well. Like for starters, you can take a paper in Springer or Nature and try to break it down. From your expertise, you can try to break it down like, here are 5 things that you need to know about this, or here are 5 things that this paper says. Something like that. It need not be massive. It need not be world changing, but you got to start somewhere. So other than, consider your audience, these are the 2 things that off the top of my head I can suggest.
I would add also not to use too many acronyms. Advice I received from my own boss. So like, people get lost very easily.
I can add something from policy perspective because I mostly try to connect with the countries. So they are not so much interested into the hardcore science part, but rather how the science is impacting them. So that's why we call it science for services. Like, what services are they getting out of it? So when you are articulating your whatever idea you are trying to get to your stakeholders, you need to identify the very specific outcomes of that science, like how it is going to impact them, or how they're going to get benefited from it, or is there any social, economic, or financial benefits out of it. So those things are more interesting to them rather than what we're trying to say from a very technical perspective. So it's sometimes challenging because different regions have their own specific interest areas and agendas. So you need to spend a lot of time studying them, or talking to local representatives, because we try to build connections with local representatives through our steering committees or our expert panels. So those things also help us to understand what this specific stakeholder might be interested in. So based on that, we can customize our messages. So yeah, that's one practical example I can share.
Thank you, Isha.
Yeah, I think in the same vein as what Jareen just said, having a use case is very helpful. I think what I've used in the past is to have a problem statement on how the science has impacted a specific problem that people might be facing. So, for instance, when we talk about seasonal to sub-seasonal forecasts, it's a very technical term. People might not always understand what that really means. What kind of time scale does it cover? But if you kind of have it linked to a use case in agriculture or in energy, maybe it helps. More reliable forecasts can help farmers regulate crop cycles and things like that. It kind of, as Jerry mentioned, shows a real use case or impact. But also, if you start with a problem statement, I think it can help to be a bit more impactful. Obviously, depends on your audience. But if you kind of are we've done presentations where there are many people working in agromet or agricultural services or just agriculture in general. And in that case, if you kind of highlight this is the problem, this is the science, and this is the use case for how the science can help, then it helps simplify it as like maybe it's a very simplified causal relationship as well, but it can show kind of the impact of how this translates to a service that people will use that can help you, and why it is in your benefit to try to understand this. Obviously, not how this forecast is generated and things, but why a useful forecast can be helpful for you. So this is something we've also learned in through our projects and research. Yeah.
Thank you. And I will also add along those lines that it's better to start somewhere. It's difficult to share, especially as a scientist, it's difficult to share information that might not be 100%. Like, we can talk about uncertainties. It's difficult to know that this can change. It's not definite. It's not a definite answer, but it's still something to start from that can bring other subjects to rise or discussions. And it's already some information, which is better to share this piece of information that even if it's an uncertainty, it's already something, than leaving room to, as we said earlier, to misinformation, for example. So yeah. Thank you very much for all these very also practical answers. We have exactly 8 minutes left if we want to stay within time. So we will continue answering some questions. There are some in the chat still. While we do so, I will just put the last slide so that you can scan the QR codes of our newsletters of the programs. Do you also attend the Executive Council meetings that are held every year? What are your roles in those meetings and how do you prepare for it throughout the year? Anybody wants to have a go at this?
I can take a first jab if you like. Yes, we do. We have access to links to the sessions for EC. The agenda is released well in advance. In terms of what are our roles in our meetings, it really depends on whether you have a document in that meeting. It could be just to learn as well how these systems work. But the other thing is also it would depend on if you have a document in these meetings that is being reviewed by countries and that needs to be approved by these countries. If you do have a document, then you have to be in that session and you keep tabs of the comments that countries are making, what kind of changes would they like to see, if they have any other demands or things that they would like to add or remove. Often there are many comments and the document requires modification. And it's only after the modification and seeing a final version that it can be approved and kind of given to the world as a standard or a guideline that could be followed. So this is kind of our role largely in those meetings is to keep track of documents if you have any presented, keep track of comments, ensure the changes are integrated, and ensure there is an approved version by the end of EC, hopefully. So it really depends. There have been some ECs where we've had no documents and we've only attended in sessions we were interested in or something like that. But if you have a document, it kind of is your job to stay on top of it, to stay on top of what countries have demanded, and then ensure that the document represents that. So that's probably, I'm not sure if it answers the question, but yeah.
I think it does. I mean, let us know in the chat. But thank you, Isha. I see Leilani answered the next one. I will just add a little note on that. Any data is available from WMO regarding micro and nanoplastic composition in ambient air. So Leilani answered that this is an area of developing research, but as of yet, we do not have data on this. And it's also something we discussed during one of our meetings within the Go team, because we're organizing in April the Go Symposium, April this year. And also, so we can share the link in the chat if you want to register and be present online, especially it will be hybrid. And it is something we mentioned in the sense of we want more, maybe even like talks or posters. That would be interesting to have posters on that or presentations, because it is something very interesting to develop and a research that we don't have enough knowledge on here within WMO in the research projects. Let's go to the next one if nobody wants to add anything. It was mentioned that Go, and I assume the other parts of WMO, uses experts within different topics. Is there any way for early career scientists to get involved with WMO while doing their PhD postdoc at a different institutes? Very good question. Anyone wants to have a go, or should I?
Yeah, I can probably respond a bit. Yes, we very much look forward to having early career researchers and young professionals involved. One of the most effective ways to be involved in a way that can also add to your PhD or influence it in some ways is that we have task teams under all our projects, and our task teams do open calls. Open calls meaning this call will be advertised via WMO's LinkedIn, via newsletters that Julie has put in the presentation. And there are specific criteria usually for the open call, but depending on the requirements of a project. So for instance, if there is a project on, say, early warning systems, then they might require some sort of experience with that. But anyone can apply. it doesn't matter which institute you're affiliated at, what stage of your academic journey you're on. If you feel like it would be a good fit to you, it can add to your education or just your interest, you can apply. And those applications are then reviewed by our project teams, and they will reach out to you if you think you're a good candidate for it. And then you have the opportunity to actually be involved in our activities, to contribute to them, to contribute to publications, attend conferences and events. And it also opens a huge network of people who have expertise in the subject that you're interested in. So that's one of the ways we've seen have been the most effective in ensuring that young professionals are kind of not just involved for the sake of representation, but actively benefit from the activity and also have opportunity for growth. At this stage, we have some task teams that are being led by young professionals, not just as members, but they're actually co-leads of these task teams and activities. So yeah, that's one way. And we have an open call, I think, coming out soon, just to stay updated.
Go ahead, Mega.
Yeah, I used to work for another research program, which is a World Climate Research Program. They have these activities called lighthouse activities, which are basically groups of scientists working towards a certain specific aspect of climate science and sometimes policy interface, but also modeling and that aspect of atmospheric sciences. And lighthouse activities are open for anybody to register as and apply for to be an affiliate member, depending on your expertise and interest. And they have meetings, regular meetings also throughout the year so that you get to work together for a certain output, So do check that out. They also have, for affiliate membership, you can apply at any time. There is no open call for that. Whenever you're interested, you can send in an application to the relevant scientific officers. So yeah, that's another way by which you can be involved in the work of research programs. And the third way I just put on the chat saying you can also check out the expertise of these programs and the people working in it, and you can if your PhD or postdoc allows, you can be a visiting scholar for a week or two if that helps you further your research aspects.
Thank you, Mega.
Thank you,
Darren,
Mega.
just letting you know that we're at exactly the time, so go ahead.
I will just add one more thing. So when we develop different guidelines or documents, we circulate them for public review. So that's also a very good opportunity to include your feedback or comments. So you are always welcome to access those documents and share your views on them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we've reached the end of our session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, all of you ladies, for answering the questions and discussing with us science governance and science communication. So as you see on the PowerPoints, please go ahead and scanning those QR codes, getting the newest updates from our programs. You also know that on the WMO website, or there's a WMO e-recruitment platform that you can also check. We didn't put the link there, but it's easily findable. And yeah, I hope it won't cut. Now it's 31, so it's not cutting. Great. If you have any other question you want to raise, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you, Mega. You put the recruitment platform on the chat. Don't hesitate to reach out to us via, put our names there, via or even LinkedIn. We can put also, I can put the email. I see someone is asking for email. I can put the email address of our program in the chat. I've also added the registration form for the symposium. So go ahead, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I hope it was interesting for all of us, that you learned things. And yeah, thank you also to IGAC and to Simone for organizing this with us. I'll leave the floor to you, Simone, if you want to close.
I just want to say thank you for a very informative session, and thanks to all the participants for some really great questions. And I think we'll just close it there, so I will stop the recording.